What?
Okay.
I'm hungry.
All right. Hey, your computer.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Let's talk through this. Let's walk through a couple examples. Just make sure you know what you're doing. Does everyone have a calculator that needs one? Anyone else need one?
No.
No.
Okay, good. All right, so first, let's walk through a couple examples of what I'm gonna have you do here. The first assignment is gonna give you, because it's broken up into 2 different pages, they're gonna give you an example of times when you're checking out. So, or punching in and punching out. So let's say you punched in at 8 a.m., you're punching out at 11:15 a.m., and they're gonna ask, how many hours have you been at work? I would always like you to calculate what your pay is at the end. So you have to figure out the amount of hours and the pay. So my goal is to do 2 examples. If we need more, we'll do more. So hopefully you're kind of paying attention. This will be one of the first ones. The second example, the second page, they get more in depth. They go more difficult numbers. So the first step, since this is AM, I don't need to change anything to military time. So I can just go 11:15 on the top, 8 o'clock on the bottom. I can subtract straight down. This makes 5, this makes 1 if I subtract straight down. 11 minus 8 is 3, so 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now, here's the thing. Yesterday we figured out this mistake some people are making. You can't just leave it 3:15. You have to convert that to hours in terms of decimals. So what you're gonna have to do is take the 3:15 and divide the 15 minutes by 60. You always have to divide that by 60 because you need to change this to hours. That's why you're going to divide by 60. Okay, if that makes sense. So if I divide by 60, that should be the number you get on the calculator screen. Does that make sense? You get 15 as a quarter. And then the idea is you're going to add that to the number that's out front. So you're going to add that, whatever that number is, you're going to add that. So in my case, I'm adding it to the 3 that was out front. So this is 3.25 hours. Okay, is there any questions with how I did that concept? The last step is take your hours and multiply by the minimum wage. The minimum wage is $7.25.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again, please?
No, cancel.
I should say something like
Weird. Alright, whatever, Siri. Alright. So you're going to take your 325, you're going to multiply by the minimum wage. So in my case, minimum wage in this case is $7.25. So take your hours and multiply by $7.25. And what do we get?
23.56.
23.56. Alright. I think we did a problem that was very similar to this yesterday. It was like insanely the same numbers. Okay. Alright. Yeah, really close actually. Okay, questions at all about the first problem? I'm going to leave that on the board. I also have these other ones on the board that you need to see as well. Questions on the first one, how we do that? Okay, second one. Second and last problem. Let's say you punched in at 10:36 in the morning, and you punched out at, let's go with 5:20 in the afternoon p.m. So you didn't take your lunch, you actually worked that entire day. So the idea is that at this particular problem, this is one you'll have to change military time because you went from morning to the afternoon. So we're gonna have to subtract these and then we'll calculate the full total number, okay? Now some of the problems you're gonna get are super easy. You can probably count with your fingers what the amount of hours is. Just remember, I still want you, whatever your minutes are, convert that to hours and divide by 60s. That way you get the decimal form of the hours. And then you can multiply by your minimum wage. We're going to still do that on this problem. We're going to multiply by minimum wage. So that's the only difficult part. So first step, how do I change 5 into military time?
Add 12.
Add 12, so that's 17:20. You add 12, that's how you change military time. You do that only in the afternoon past 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock now. Okay, I'm going to subtract the 10:36. We're going to subtract, we'll probably have to borrow, but I'm going to subtract these. Remember, the top number has to be bigger than the bottom. So can I subtract 0 minus 6? No. Can I go 2 minus 3? No. So I'm going to have to borrow from the 17. I'm going to make this 16 hours. Like 16. and then I'm gonna add a 60 to the next column. So when I add 60 to this column, this 2 now became an 8. Because you're not just borrowing the 1, you're borrowing 60 minutes from that hour. So this 6 carrying over is because of the 16 I borrowed for 1 hour. So this now became an 80, if that makes sense to you. Does that make sense how that worked? You're carrying the 6 over and adding with the 2. Now I can borrow from the 8, making that a 7. This is a 10, and now I can subtract it down. That is a 4. I made the 8 a 7, so that's 7 minus 3, which is 4. 16 minus 10 is 6. So I'm actually working 6 hours and 44 minutes. Okay, is there any questions? Oh, I used red. Any questions on how I borrowed from that 17 made it to 16? And then I added the 6 to the next column, the 16 to make it 8. And then I had to borrow from that. If you borrow from minutes, you can just carry a 1 over. Okay, now what's my next step? Divide by 60, right? Because you got to convert this to hours. So I'm going to take my 44 minutes, divide by 60, and whatever that answer is, you're going to add to the 6 hours you already had. So it's almost what? It's almost 0.75. It's really close. So 44 divided by 60. Yeah,
7:30.
3 repeating. Yeah. And then you're going to multiply that number. So that was 0.73. You add that to 6. And now I'm going to multiply that by my minimum wage. So I'm going to multiply this by $7.25. So I'm looking at probably about 40 some dollars worth. 40. So add that to 6. Take that times 7.25. The number I'm getting is about 48 bucks. I kept all these 3s. There was a ton of 3s on that, by the way. I kept them all on there. Multiplied by 7.25, I'm getting $48 and about 82 cents, 81 cents. You have to be within a few pennies, because if you're off by major numbers, I can tell you're rounding too far. Questions at all about what we're doing here? I'm leaving every example from the last 2 days up on this board, so you can look around the room and see it. This assignment is going to be due Tuesday next week. You have 4 days. I'm betting on, since I'm going to give you about a half an hour, you'll probably get it done before you leave. That's how simple some of these numbers are. But does everyone understand what you're doing here? Homework's on the boards. Your page 6 and page 7. It's due on Tuesday. Remember, we do not have class Monday. You need to take your books home, in case you don't get it done today. The rest of the time is yours. You can move around, you can sit, you can borrow calculators, you can do whatever you need to. The rest of the time is yours.